This is TruNews. I'm Edward Zoll. Host Rick Wells is still under the weather. Please keep him in your prayers as he continues to recover. The topic today is Election Day 2020. Not about who's going to win, though, but if it's even going to happen. 32 Americans dead, over 200 injured, martial law declared, and the election itself canceled. Those are the results of Operation Blackout, a doomsday election simulation run by a shadowy tech firm with deep ties to Israeli intelligence and sporting newly inked contracts with the Pentagon to protect their highly sensitive computers. In an early iteration of this drill, Cyber Reason, led by a former leader of Israel's elite cyber warfare division, Unit 8200, sowed fictional chaos in Boston by hacking self-driving cars, hijacking the city's closed-circuit cameras, and by spreading waves of fake news to seed confusion. Here is a glimpse of Cyber Reason's drill last July.
Oh, breaking news. 911 call center is down, hacked and offline all over the city.
It's an election day meltdown.
We have to increase fear.
Hackers attack a large city in a swing state.
Our ultimate goal is to get people to stay home.
They're determined to affect the result without ever touching a voting machine. And it's working.
Attendance extremely low polls.
Tempers seem to be flaring amongst voters.
This is a simulation, but the risks are real.
The clock is ticking.
Only the National Investigative Unit was allowed to watch.
You'll notice there are some cameras in the room.
As agents and officers from the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, several state police departments, and more met in early July in Boston, a birthplace of American liberty, to now defend that freedom.
You want to disrupt thousands.
The red team, played by experts from Harvard, Boston University, Nichols College, and Cyber Reason, launches the first moves.
All lights are green.
They turn all traffic lights green to block voters from the polls. They confuse them.
Doctoring images from the city cameras.
Deep fakes.
And they send out false emergency alerts.
An active shooter in districts 8 and 5.
Flood alert on the subway.
Law enforcement quickly counters.
Are we calling in the National Guard?
If we're not in communication with the campaigns, they could be disseminating misinformation unwittingly.
But soon the black team suffers setbacks.
So we just lost 60 more officers. So they compromised the mayor's Facebook page. They have compromised his Twitter account.
And big victories.
911 is back online.
They're causing some chaos and mayhem on Election Day.
Sam Curry at Cyber Reason is in charge of the drill.
What's happening right now?
They asked for control of the electrical grid.
The red team.
The red team.
But after 90 minutes,
I'm ruling this a win for the black team.
Law enforcement successfully outmaneuvers the hackers to preserve the mock election.
In the past, I've rarely seen the black team emerge well.
Did that surprise you?
It did. By the end of the day, they had clearly won.
It was very realistic. The emphasis on countering influence operations, that's our bread and butter these days. Collectively, everybody's paying more attention to this now.
You were a bad guy.
I was.
Allison McDowell Smith, director of a counterterrorism program at Nichols College, kept in mind a key lesson from the 9/11 Commission report: a government failure of imagination.
Are you trying to prevent that from occurring again?
We are.
With democracy on the line.
Though the bad guy was narrowly defeated in this round of simulated terrorism, round two, held just this past November, was conducted with members of the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the U.S. Secret Service, and was refereed by members of Cyber Reason's staff and Ari Swartz, a former member of Barack Obama's White House National Security Council and the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Joining me to discuss the drill that ended with no election and martial law is investigative journalist Withney Webb. Welcome to TruNews, Withney.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So, Withney, from my understanding here, according to some, especially those with the access to simulation equipment, we may not even have an election this coming year.
Right. Well, you know, this exercise was justified as preventing the quote-unquote foreign meddling that was alleged to have occurred in the 2016 election. But even if you look at the extent of foreign meddling that was alleged during that time frame, it was, you know, WikiLeaks hacked the leaked emails. It was social media ads on Facebook, 25% of which were not even seen by the public and which totaled $100,000. And so what was being simulated in this exercise, by all indications, is complete overkill of the type of election interference that allegedly spawned this exercise to begin with. What the red team or the quote unquote bad actor team ended up doing in this simulation was things like take control of city buses, ram them into civilians standing in line waiting to vote at polling stations, cutting off power to polling stations, taking over cable TV news, including major national outlets like Fox News, and using deep fakes to create, to basically, as they say, mess with voters' minds and sow doubt in the results of the election, and create a climate of fear about foreign meddling and about foreign terrorism attacking the United States. And it's very interesting that the company that was responsible for this simulation, Cybereason, the services they offer would in no way help or prevent law enforcement, try and prevent these types of acts from occurring on Election Day, because their main platform is a cybersecurity defense platform, which is basically like an antivirus and an advanced antivirus type of software and ransomware protection and all of that. And this simulation did not involve electronic voting machines or anything like that. It was just terrorism that was being conducted, and this company conducted this exercise for free, and they stand to gain no financial benefit from it because they can't pitch their product as a solution to this type of scenario. So the simulation itself is very odd, and when you begin to look into this company and its ties to foreign military intelligence, which are openly admitted actually by its CEO, Lior Div, who actually views his work at Cybereason, he says, as a quote-unquote continuation of his service to Israeli military intelligence. This starts to take on a whole different character and becomes very unsettling. And I think this information really needs to, be scrutinized by the public. People should obviously come to their own conclusions, but I think it's important to get the facts out there about this company. And people need to be asking, why were they conducting this type of simulation that left scores of Americans dead and basically demolished America's democracy by imposing, martial law and canceling the election.
Well, about that company, again, Cybereason, where are they headquartered? And can you basically walk us through a little bit of what started this company? We know it is manned by veterans of the elite IDF Unit 8200. We've spoken extensively about this elite unit and, again, their alumni program, which seems to have seeded intentionally members from this group in every Silicon Valley-based company out there, from Google all the way to Microsoft's Election Guard and other nefarious, at times, apps and services. Who is this company that has created this fantasy of death scenario for our election day this year?
Right. So 2012 was the year when Israel developed this open policy of basically seeding tech domestically and abroad with Unit 8200 members as a way to combat BDS and other things, and to create position Israel as the dominant cyber power. This is openly admitted by Netanyahu in various speeches he's given. This was also the year that Paul Singer, the neocon donor, created Startup Nation Central to facilitate that tech transfer and sort of implement this policy. In 2012, when all this took place, is actually the year that Cybereason was founded. It was founded by 3 individuals, all of whom are alumni of Unit 8200. One of them, the current CEO, used to work for Amdocs. He also founded his own Israeli government cybersecurity contractor that serviced only Israeli government agencies. But if you look at the publicly provided information of this contractor itself, called Alpha Tech, it describes itself as a corporate headhunting and recruitment service, but Israeli media reports call it a government contractor for cybersecurity. So it's very interesting that there's a disconnect there between its publicly stated purpose and what people actually says it does. The other 2 co-founders used to work for a subsidiary of Converse Infosys, now known as Verint, that's called Gita Technologies, mentioning Amdocs and Verint, i.e. Converse Infosys, is very important because both of these companies were cited in a 2001 report by Fox News' Carl Cameron of being involved in the aggressive spying of U.S. federal agencies by the state of Israel prior to and after the September 11th attacks. And Amdocs was also responsible for wiretapping phones that actually led to call logs of Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky falling falling first into the hands of Israel, to Netanyahu, who would attempt to use this over leverage for on President Clinton for various aims. And so I think this background of this company is very significant, as is the timing of its founding.
Well, speaking again of this company, this doomsday election simulation, where exactly did this take place? From reading your report, I see it took place in November of last year. But what city was this in, and who were the players? Did the U.S. government, for example, I saw the U.S. Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. What other top officials from our government, using their taxpayer-funded time, mind you, and data, helped create this fantasy of death simulation?
Right. So Cyber Reason organized the event in the Washington, D.C. area, and they invited members of the FBI, DHS, and the Secret Service to attend. And they composed the blue team, which was the law enforcement team, and members of Cyber Reason itself composed the red team that decided to use these tactics of terrorism to basically upend and cancel effectively the U.S. election in 2020.
So how did this drill start? They basically started out with some bad actors, as you noted. Their goal was to disrupt the election, do anything they could to stop it. And did they go right to hijacking buses and driving them into people waiting to vote? Or what, how did this first start? And is there much reporting about this? From my understanding, there weren't many media that were even allowed to cover this event. Is that true?
It was a turn-based simulation. So basically the red team or the bad actor team would make a move, and then the law enforcement team would respond, and it kept going like that until the end of the simulation. So it developed over time. But yes, these were tactics that were chosen by the red team, and the blue team or the law enforcement team of U.S. officials was a force to respond. And obviously this company was, basically gauging how law enforcement responded to these types of acts, which I think is very disconcerting. I'm sorry, the other part of your question?
The other part was simply about how it progressed through. I know that we have obviously the part where the buses were hijacked. I remember reading in the first drill of this, and at least one of the iterations before the November drill, self-driving cars were hijacked. In regard to the deep fakes, that really caught my attention because we're starting to see discussions among neoconservatives and the deep state technology and security infrastructure that deep fakes will be used not just in the upcoming election in this country, but around the globe and potentially in every election to come. We saw in this past election in England, there was a deep fake that was released to demonstrate the capabilities of this technology. You had a fake Jeremy Corbyn and a fake Boris Johnson, both commending each other's policies.
Right.
And to the layman's eye, to someone who wasn't aware that this was essentially a fictional event, a fictional depiction, they thought they were seeing reality. They thought they were seeing two world leaders, considered to be as such being leaders of parties in England, basically saying things that weren't true. In this case, how did they use deep fakes in the Cyber Reason drill in Washington, D.C.?
Well, really quick, I want to point out that this deepfake technology, which was used in the simulation, that is pioneered by an Israeli company called Canny AI, and they were actually the ones responsible for that video you just cited of Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson.
Wow.
As well as other prominent deepfake videos that have received media attention. They are arguably the best-known deepfake company that exists right now. They've also recently did deep fakes of Richard Nixon, of Mark Zuckerberg, saying all sorts of things they did not say. And this company is actually partnered with Cyber Reason through the company that funds it, which is, it's a startup accelerator called Accelerator, which is actually managed by Israeli intelligence agency Shin Bet. And of course, this is partnered with Cyber Reason, which just simulated the use of deep fakes to completely upend the U.S. 2020 election. And some of the things they suggested using deepfakes for in this simulation was to release a video last minute of one of the presidential contenders of them saying something inflammatory. And it was also involved deepfakes of well-known pundits on national and also local news channels to put out just disinformation about polling stations being closed or incorrect information about the hours and scheduling of polling and when people could go vote. And things of that nature. That's how the deep fakes were used.
That is just incredible because, covering this subject over the past year, especially the advancement in deepfakes, I'm just thinking to myself, I think of my parents, think of people I know that on election day, they're just looking to make it to the polling station. But if they were to hear a report that, again, the station's closed, or let's say this technology is deployed in a manner to scare people away from the polling station, there's some kind of virus, some kind of an emergency, they clearly wouldn't show up.
That is one thing that I forgot that it was used for. A deep fake was also used to create a fake bomb threat that was posing as ISIS, as having come from ISIS, which is interesting considering, which we've talked about on the show before, Israeli intelligence's ties to ISIS itself as well.
Sure, they're definitely not your good neighbor. Again, referring back to Operation Good Neighbor. What you look at this subject. You mentioned at the beginning about if we really wanted to run a drill to protect the elections, and we looked at the official things that disrupted the 2016 election. Again, this is the official statement from the propagandized establishment media, right? That WikiLeaks and Russian hackers were responsible for the election of Donald Trump. Well, if we were to look at even that as the official story, this doesn't seem to address any of the issues such as the buying of Facebook ads with spelling errors and seductive language for Christians and others to think of President Trump in a different manner. This doesn't seem to address this at all. Instead, it seems to be a fantasy, maybe even a nightmare from John Bolton's mind. You think about the nature of the drill. If this wasn't an election day drill, this could have been a drill depicting the beginning of World War III. It could be a drill depicting the end of the country. The parameters in this drill would be on par with a new 9/11. The fact that our government, in conjunction with an Israeli-connected firm, again, manned by Israeli intelligence officials, former or current, we don't know, the fact that they ran this should be incredibly troubling to any American who still feels there might be a semblance of an electoral system in this country that can be effective in this coming year. Now, Withney, what are some other connections that this Cyber Reason firm, again, the firm who ran this doomsday scenario, have inside reports we've covered before? For example, don't they have a tie-in with Carbine 911, Ehud Barak's firm that's trying to take over the 911 emergency system in America?
Yes, they do. They are actually advised by Pinchas Bukris, who is a former commander of Unit 8200. He is on the board of directors of Carbine 911, alongside former Israeli Prime Minister and friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Ehud Barak. And of course, Carbine 911 is the company that Jeffrey Epstein himself poured $1 million into. Yes, he is one of the main advisors to Cyber Reason.
Incredible. Now, does Jared Kushner have a connection to this company too, or this overarching inclusion of Israeli tech warriors inside our system?
Well, not a direct connection, but a connection that is worth noting, which would be that the main investor in Cyber Reason is Japan's SoftBank, which has given considerable amounts of money to Charles Kushner, Jared Kushner's father, and of course opened its Vision Fund with the majority stakeholder being Saudi Arabia. And of course, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has close ties to Jared Kushner. Also, SoftBank was the firm that bailed out Adam Neumann's WeWork. And of course, relatively recently, Adam Neumann declared that he, MBS of Saudi Arabia, and Jared Kushner together were going to save the world, and that all three had worked together to craft the Jared Kushner Middle East peace plan. So there are definitely ties of their main investor to that triad of Kushner, MBS, and Newman, as it were. But also SoftBank has ties to the Trump administration itself, because not long after Trump was elected, the head of SoftBank traveled to Trump Tower and said that because Trump had been elected, he was going to invest large amounts of money, $50 billion in the U.S., bring 50,000 jobs to the U.S., forge closer ties with Trump. And he claimed that Trump was going to make the U.S. great again, and that he had come to Trump Tower to celebrate Trump's election. So that's quite interesting that this is the main investor of the company that is running election simulations that end in this way. Because if the U.S. Was to see the 2020 elections canceled, presumably the current administration would remain in place, and that would be the Trump administration, whether Trump is impeached or not. It would be generally the holdovers from the administration, even if President Trump is somehow removed, would remain in power.
That's an incredible point you pointed out here, because it is true that the simulation ended with the elections being canceled and martial law being declared. And in that scenario, if it were to actually happen in 2020, this year, President Trump would stay on it. It's kind of eerie because we know that President Trump hasn't been very shy of someone, say, joking, but openly touting what a third term or even an illegitimate term, one that wouldn't be one that is of popular election. And we know this has been used by the Trump administration as a meme or as a joke, but it's been multiple times that we've covered this on the program. With the simulation, did it simply end with the martial law and the election being canceled? But what kind of led to it being canceled? Was it simply that the infrastructure itself couldn't carry on, or was it just the death toll and the chaos was so great that the only thing that could be done was a takeover?
Well, of course, this ending scenario was declared by the quote-unquote white team, or the referees of the simulation, which was Ari Schwartz and Cybereason CISO, and they decided, citing the level of chaos and the deaths and the fear among the American populace at the time was sufficient to have that be declared as the end result.
Now, this you mentioned, SoftBank, and them basically being a larger arm of funding for this company, Cybereason. I've noticed that SoftBank isn't the first simulation company that they have acquired. When we were covering the NATO summit in December of last year, there was a company that was invited, actually given a keynote speech at the NATO Innovation Engage summit before President Trump arrived, and that company was called Improbable. They also received $502 million from SoftBank in 2017, the year, again, President Trump came into power. And you think about this firm actually is in charge of creating a virtual environment, virtual worlds. And NATO's interested in it. It appeared to be so that they wanted to run drills where they could see what chaos in major cities, NATO capitals, Washington, London, Brussels, what it would look like and how they would be able to respond using, again, this virtual environment. I haven't been able to find the tie-in to Cybereason and Improbable other than SoftBank, but it is intriguing and a little bit eerie that SoftBank has been essentially collecting companies that can run these sandbox drills, doomsday drills at that. What do you make of that, Withney?
Well, I think SoftBank has been acquiring a lot of troubling companies. For instance, they recently also acquired Boston Dynamics, which makes all those quote-unquote killer robots that are able to run faster than cheetahs and are considered in construct. Yeah, and all of that. They're also investing very heavily in artificial intelligence and things of that nature. And actually, SoftBank recently has been having Cybereason, one of the companies. It's the largest investor in Cybereason. They've been having Cybereason partner up with other companies it's acquired, including the UK technology company involved in Internet of Things technology, ARM. And having them partner up and have their Cybereason's product portfolio integrated into all these other companies that have been acquired or majority owned by SoftBank, which is pretty significant. If we could talk really quick about Cybereason's own product, though, I think that's significant as well in the context of what we are discussing beyond just the simulation itself. So as I mentioned earlier, it's sort of like an advanced antivirus type of thing. And, numerous cybersecurity experts have noted that if there are, foreign intelligence services connected to antivirus, it's considered the ultimate backdoor because it has, near complete, if not complete, access to an individual device as well as the network, and in the name of protecting that network and those devices that are connected to it, right? So Cybereason is very has grown substantially in recent years. And I want to point out, SoftBank, as I said earlier, has, integrated Cybereason's platform into its product portfolio, and it markets it to its clients, as well as a lot of the companies that it's acquired recently. But I would like to draw attention to one of the other main investors of Cybereason, which is Lockheed Martin, which is actually the, one of the largest, if not the largest, I believe, U.S. government contractor. And since Lockheed Martin invested in Cybereason, they actually, at the same time they invested in $25 million in Cybereason, they integrated Cybereason's product into their portfolio that was offered not only to their private sector clients, but their public sector clients. So this has been running on government computers since 2015. And even though Lockheed Martin's IT division was spun off and merged with Leidos, Leidos has become the largest IT provider to the U.S. federal government and is running cyber reason software on computers of several U.S. intelligence agencies, the CIA and the NSA among them, as well as the DISA of the U.S. military, also systems for the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Army, and other divisions as well. So this, potential backdoor into all these systems exist through cyber reason. It has not gotten very much coverage at all, especially considering the deep ties of this company to foreign military intelligence and the history of Israeli military intelligence, specifically targeting U.S. federal agencies aggressively through technology companies. I mentioned Amdocs and Verint earlier. There's also a company called Naris that has been caught doing this as well. And this all goes back, as well to the Promise software, where backdoors, Israel put backdoors in the Promise software that was marketed widely, including to sensitive U.S. facilities, which were sold by Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. And it's just very disturbing to consider the scope of this company. And if a type of scenario were to happen in the U.S. on Election Day, this company that's conducting simulations for this very thing has access to so many classified and sensitive U.S. systems. It is very concerning.
That's incredible. Before we get into the work this company and even capabilities this company might have with IoT devices, I want just to address something here. Is it what you just laid out here? Forget China. We've given the keys to the kingdom, according to what you just laid out, to Israel. I mean, we're talking about the most highly secure military infrastructure, from destroyers to our even potentially maybe even our nuclear missile arsenal, our planes, our soldiers' devices, our robotic arsenal that we may or may not already have ready to deploy. What you're saying is there may be a backdoor into the national infrastructure, the national security infrastructure, and you think the way we're being molded, the way we're being directed by our leaders right now is that China and Russia and maybe even Iran, if we get sold the idea that they have elite hacking teams, that they're the true threat, right, to our infrastructure. But what you've laid out here is a very real system, and the drill that was run a couple months ago that is far more troubling than anything Russia or China has come up with or enacted or attempted to do against our election system. It really shows you again that the government is not out to protect the elections, not if you would believe that to begin with, but instead potentially is either asleep at the wheel or is happily giving away, again, the keys to the national security infrastructure of this country.
Right. And actually, one of the main drivers of the narrative that China is hacking the U.S. and targeting U.S. companies and has an eye on the 2020 election is actually Cyber Reason itself.
Oh, my
who has been putting
goodness.
out several reports blaming state actors, including China and Iran, of conducting cyber attacks on the U.S. And they have provided no public evidence, citing the sensitive, quote unquote, sensitive nature of the hacks, and have claimed that major telecom companies were hacked by Chinese linked state actors, but as I said earlier, they won't release the evidence, even though the people that run this company used to work for companies like Amdocs and Converse Infosys, which actually Converse Infosys, after it became Verint, actually was hired by the NSA to create the backdoors into the U.S. telecommunications system for the NSA that was given to a foreign company with a history of espionage against the United States. And to think that they did not keep those backdoors for themselves, I think, is honestly very naive.
That's very well put, Withney. Before we end, I want to speak real quick about the Internet of Things angle of this story. Again, the Internet of Things are devices like, again, your smartphone, but more so, smart doorbells, smart fridges, anything that has both a connection to the World Wide Web, the Internet, and has AI built into it, that it can think for itself. Reports are billions of these devices are going into use around the globe, especially as we approach 2030. But how does the Internet of Things devices and their security flaws inherent to their very small computer structure, how does that tie into Cyber Reason?
Well, during the election simulation, one of the other things that I may have forgotten to mention is that there was hacking of Internet of Things or IoT devices was used by the quote unquote bad actors, the red team, to upend the U.S. democracy. And as I mentioned earlier, SoftBank acquired a company, a UK technology company, which is now partnered with Cybereason at SoftBank's urging, which is called ARM, which is actually a major manufacturer of IoT chips and other integral parts of Internet of Things devices. And also, since we were talking about Carbine and their tie-ins to Cybereason as well, there is actually an Israeli startup that was recently founded. It was founded in, I believe, mid-2018, that was specifically created to allow governments and intelligence agencies to hack Internet of Things devices. And this was founded by Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister, friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and also chairman of the board of Carbine 911, which, as we mentioned earlier, is being advised by another director of that. Cybereason's being advised by one of the members of that company as well. This company that I'm talking about, though, that is going to give governments and intelligence agencies that are only allied with the U.S. and Israel the capacity to hack Internet of Things devices easily is called Toka, T-O-K-A, and it was founded by the former IDF head of cyber operations, who was the lead architect of all of the IDF cyber activities during his time there. In Ehud Barak, as I mentioned, as well as officials associated with Cisco, which is an official partner of Carbine 911, and also Checkpoint Tech, another Unit 8200 founded company. And basically, it openly admits that it's going to exploit the market opportunity IoT brings specifically for intelligence agencies and military units. So given their connections, to this, network of interconnected Unit 8200 companies, I think this is very significant. Let's remember as well that Ehud Barak, not only was he the former head, the former prime minister of Israel, he was also the former head of Israeli military intelligence, including, which includes, of course, Unit 8200. And interestingly enough, one of the main funders of this new company that Ehud Barak is starting up to hack these devices, one of them is a venture capital fund that is advised by former Secretary of the Treasury and friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Larry Summers. And another one is Entree Capital, and the managing partner of that firm, who is also on this new company's board, was a former top executive at both Amdocs and Verint Converse Infosys, and he also founded the IDF Satellite Intelligence Unit.
That's incredible. I mean, Larry Summers also has a tie-in with Genie Energy. He's on the advisory board, from my understanding, for Genie Energy, the company that has the sole rights to the gas reserves in the Golan Heights, newly annexed to Israel themselves to exploit it. But you see this, there seems to be continual tie-ins between all of these central figures. And as you keep noting, Jeffrey Epstein, even from the grave, is at the center of yet another compromising, potentially even blackmailing, and definitely unsecuring scandal, something that is not just a threat to the national security infrastructure of the country, but to the personal privacy of anyone with an IoT-connected device in their home.
Right. And let's remember, too, that Jeffrey Epstein's sexual blackmail operation, according to the evidence, was linked to Israeli military intelligence. And, they were blackmailing people. And after that operation ended, he was rebranding as a tech investor, including his investments in Carbine 911, which I think really shows that Israeli military intelligence has shifted its focus onto these types of activities, and targeting the United States pretty aggressively. And Jeffrey Epstein was a key part of that. And it's very significant, his reappearance in these type of things, and also to think about the broader picture of what he was accused of doing. The sexual blackmail operation, the exploitation of these women, was part of the same agency that's conducting these election simulations right now. It's important to consider that this is the same agency connected to all of these things. And to not view these as isolated incidents, but part of the same foreign military intelligence agency that has been aggressively targeting the U.S. in various ways, not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of compromising our politicians with sexual blackmail. And let's remember, too, this is the IDF. This is a military intelligence agency. They obviously want to fulfill the military objectives of Israel at a time when the U.S. is being pushed more now than ever into a war with Iran. So it's important to consider all of these things together. I don't think these are isolated parts. I think they are all sort of interconnected, I guess you could say.
Withney, before we close out, have you been getting harassed by this cyber reason company? Like, have they come after you? We know this is a Unit 8200 connected company. Has there been any backlash for your report?
Well, what I have noticed is that on my Twitter account, I have been getting random tweets of mine liked by members of Cyber Reason's staff, including the head of one of their hacking units, which is a little bit unsettling. But, you know, I didn't really get that much backlash from my Epstein reporting. But what happened in the days since the Cyber Reason report has come out is that there have been a smear campaign waged against me, where I have also people have been publishing pictures, the full name, and the current employment operation of my parent, information of my parents. And one of the people doing this recently claimed that he had been contacted and was getting information fed to him by quote unquote old Mossad, whatever that means, and that he has previously said in past videos of his that he always roots for Mossad and wish his children had joined the IDF. So apparently I struck a nerve here. So I really would urge all people that are interested in this type of material to spread it far and wide, because the more visible it becomes, you know, the less chance that this type of tactics to intimidate my investigation into this firm will succeed.
Well, Withney, if you don't mind, we'd love here. I know the TruNews audience would love to join me. Can we pray for your protection and your safety as you continue your reporting?
That would be wonderful.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we just ask for your angels to be watching over Withney and her family, Lord, and that as she investigates these very tough subjects, these subjects that at times aren't popular but need to be talked about, Lord, that you equipped her and her family with the full armor of God. Lord, we just ask for your angels to be with her and with all those who are resisting this toxic political ideology and evildoers in this world, Lord. We just ask for your protection and guidance through the blood of Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, thank you again for joining us, Withney. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you praying for me and my family. It's just this guy just went out and put all this public information about my dad online. He has 50,000 followers on Twitter. I mean, just really unsettling stuff that didn't even happen with my Epstein reporting, which was, you know, has gotten a lot more publicity than the Cyber Reason stuff. So I guess they really didn't want this story to come out.
Well, Withney, there's an old homage among warriors, let's say soldiers, that you're not really under the target zone until you start receiving flak fire. And though this flak fire is obviously uncomfortable, Withney, it means that you're really hitting home. And I just encourage you to not stop. You are doing great work, and I'm gladly invite you back on TruNews to speak about your follow-on reports.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us for this investigative report. As TruNews serves as one of the last bastions for honest, independent truth in the world ravaged by Satan's lies, your support is what gets us through this. We do this through, again, your faithful prayer and financial support. You can become an ally today in this fight against evil by partnering with us through our website, TruNews.com. That is TRUNEWS.com. When you go there, simply click on the red donate button in the top right-hand corner. We're set up to receive everything from cryptocurrency to stock, precious metals, and even land if you're looking for a good ministry to donate it to. If you have the TruNews app, available on most smartphones, pads, and other devices through your app store, you can support us by clicking on the heart button in the upper left-hand corner, which will take you directly to our donation page. You can also write us or mail a check, money order, or precious metal to P.O. Box 690069, Vero Beach, Florida, zip code 32969. That is P.O. Box 690069, Vero Beach, Florida, 32969. You can also call us 24/7 at 800-576-2116. That is 800-576-2116 for donations and also prayers. If you have a prayer request, any time of the day, even in the middle of the night, if you need someone to pray with you or get a message to our staff to pray for whatever's going on in your life, we will gladly do it. Do so through that call line. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to delivering the news to you that you won't hear anywhere else in the world, here on TruNews. God bless you.